11th Annual Storied Annals of Major Media Conglomerates series presents The Worst Hour in Television History with Jackie Tom-BORSHLAN. Good evening. Tonight we're going to go ahead, after a by all accounts fantastic 4-episode special, and leave the great broadcaster Dan Rather behind. For the second time as a nation, really, to dig deeper into one of the stranger intersections of true crime, historically odd television, outsider art, and unsolved murder in our country's history. We're looking back to the most spectacular television disaster of all time. It aired 20 years ago today, on January 19th, 1993. That gas comes.
Did you know I taught your father to shoot the day his heart exploded?
Shut.
Alright. You have learned everything there is to learn from me. For I am a cardiologist, not a sage.
Load. Almost one.
I know only of two things. The technical workings of the human heart, and the metaphorical workings of the human heart.
What is much more easily.
Do any of these clips look familiar? Do you remember Dommy Derlane? Or do you know him better as SNEAL? How about a swimming pool streaked with blood and littered with dozens of automatic rifles? Did you wake up yourself today, or are you somebody else again? I apologize for the barrage of questions, but tonight there will be many, and many of them unanswerable. And speaking of barrages, that barrage of bizarre, unanswerable imagery you just witnessed, and may very well remember, was produced by this man SNEAL, or Dommy Derlane, depending on which universe you sign up with. Yes, these images and many more like them, and these questions and many more like them, all of these were woven together into a uniquely memorable, unbearable hour foisted on an unwitting public by the force of a peculiar personality. You might also recall the crime story, which got serious national play in late 1992, that spearheaded the madness. A reporter was fired from Channel 6 News in Oakland, California, for unprofessional conduct in a double homicide case that he had been covering for the station. That reporter was Derlane, also known as SNEAL. Ringing a bell. Lest the public forget, the case itself, even before Derlane, or SNEAL, got caught up in it, was memorable. Terrible, but memorable. In September 1992, a consultant for the Army Corps of Engineers had been found dead, apparently drowned, his corpse floating in the swimming pool of a prominent Oakland cardiologist, Ted Ling. Ling, too, was found dead at the scene, shot over 100 times by 3 different automatic weapons. More than 40 guns were recovered, many of them also floating in the pool. One of the detectives overheard the reporter, Derlane, asking what the detective thought to be very odd, personal questions of Ling's family members. Intrigued, he put a tail on Derlane and discovered the reporter was stealing drapery from around the house and sewing elaborate robes for himself. Several people reported seeing him holding court in his increasingly grotesque style under the interstate at Grand Avenue.
I didn't see that happen.
Ultimately, no criminal charges were ever filed against Derlane, also known as SNEAL. But the Ling family did file a restraining order against him, and Derlane's career as a journalist abruptly ended. Also, the public demanded that Derlane be taken off the streets, but the DA insisted he had no case. Sometime later, Derlane appeared again, with a very strange piece of what he called evidence. He had produced a video in which he was suddenly referring to himself only as SNEAL, and this SNEAL claimed he had evidence that would help catch the killer. Using that leverage, he negotiated with police and his old employer, Channel 6 News, Oakland, to have the video premiered directly following the 10 o'clock news.
Rumor about the imminent death of a relatively young...
Amazingly, the video took up the entire hour following the news. Knowing the television business on a technical level, Derlane even left space for commercials, although no sponsors would dare involve themselves, resulting in now infamous chunks of dead air in between what were, let's say, some of the most interesting segments ever to grace the silver screen. According to the San Francisco Chronicle's Tim Goodman, viewers were subjected to a mad, flailing patchwork of remarkable uselessness. Moreover, despite the Byzantine connections implied in the harried footage compiled by SNEAL, nothing in the record indicated any connection between Derlane and Ted Ling, or Ted Ling and Derlane's father. In fact, the identity of SNEAL's father was never determined. By all accounts, he grew up as a ward of the state of California. The references to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and to Albuquerque, New Mexico remain murky, and although obviously inspired by the facts of the case, otherwise entirely senseless. One interesting footnote. It has very recently come to the attention of this broadcast that SNEAL has been making the rounds again, this time posing as an ironic graphic artist and intentionally surrealist filmmaker, back on his home turf in Oakland, California. Some cultural shifts have occurred, apparently, in that city, allowing his transformation from national pariah to minimally accepted, though largely overlooked, incredibly derivative artiste. Well, that about does it. This is Jackie Tom-Borshlan, reporting on the worst hour in television history, signing off. Next week we will fall asleep way before bedtime with a look at the final 10 years of the career of Tom Snyder.